So usually when we talk about grief in our culture, we tend to rely on these really abstract, um, almost poetic terms.
Oh, absolutely.
Like we hear people say that time heals all wounds, or we talk about finding closure or, moving on.
Right, moving on, as if it's just a place you can walk to.
Yeah. It's treated like this vague philosophical journey that you just have to endure. People drop off a casserole, give you a sympathetic look, and essentially imply that you just need to, well, wait out the clock until the sadness fades.
It is entirely framed as a mental or emotional puzzle.
Hmm.
The underlying assumption is that if you can just process the thoughts enough, or give it enough months or years, the equation will balance itself out.
And you'll just magically go back to
Yeah,
normal.
exactly.
But then you actually experience a profound loss. And suddenly, all of those gentle platitudes completely fall apart.
They really do.
Because the reality of grief isn't just a philosophical concept or a sad feeling. It is a violent physical shock to your entire system. I mean, it's a racing heart, it's shortness of breath.
It's a total inability to sit still or sleep.
Right. You feel like you are literally drowning in panic.
It is the absolute definition of a biological and emotional storm. Your nervous system is hijacked. It demands immediate triage and physical first aid, not just a shifting perspective.
And that visceral physical reality is exactly why we are embarking on this deep dive today. We're looking at a really fascinating stack of sources, anchoring our discussion on excerpts from Zen Master Thich Nhat Hanh's profound guide, How to Live When a Loved One Dies.
It's such a powerful text.
It really is. But we're also cross-referencing his teachings with modern neuroscience and behavioral psychology to understand exactly why his methods actually work.
Right, grounding it in the science.
Exactly. The mission for this deep dive is to extract practical grounding tools for surviving that overwhelming storm. We aren't just going to talk about the concept of death. We're going to look at literal survival mechanisms for the mind and body when life feels physically unbearable.
And ultimately explore a radically different perspective on human connection.
Okay, let's unpack this. Where do we even begin with something so massive?
Well, the most logical place to start is at the absolute epicenter of the crisis. Thich Nhat Hanh doesn't open his guide with a grand, esoteric theory of the afterlife.
Thank goodness.
Right. He begins with the immediate, visceral onset of grief, using this incredibly powerful analogy of a tree in a severe storm.
I really want to visualize this. What are we looking at during this storm?
So picture a massive tree during a hurricane. If you focus your attention on the top of the tree, the branches and the leaves are thrashing about wildly in the wind.
Okay, I see it.
They look incredibly fragile, like they were going to snap and be torn away into the sky at any second. If you only look at the top of the tree, you feel terrified.
Yeah, you'd think the whole thing is coming down.
Exactly. But if you lower your gaze and look down at the trunk, you see something entirely different. The trunk is still. It is solid. It is deeply rooted in the soil, fully capable of withstanding the storm.
So in this framework, our our racing, panicking thoughts, our catastrophic anxieties about how we are going to survive without this person, that is the top of the tree.
Yes, precisely.
And when grief first hits, that is exactly where we get trapped. We are up in those thrashing branches. It's like being trapped in the attic of a tall house during a hurricane. The wind is howling, the roof feels like it's going to rip off, and you are just trapped in the panic.
The attic is a perfect comparison. And to get out of that frantic state, Thich Nhat Hanh offers a very specific physical intervention, which is belly breathing.
Belly breathing, okay.
Yeah. When a painful emotion arises, the instruction is to stop whatever you are doing and bring all of your awareness down from your head to your navel.
So away from the chest.
Right. You deliberately shift your attention away from the throat and the chest, which are probably tight and heaving from crying, and you focus entirely on the physical rising and falling of the abdomen.
So the breath is essentially the staircase that lets you walk down step by step out of that howling attic and into the solid concrete basement of your body where it's actually safe and quiet.
I love that. Yes. It is described quite literally as a life raft in a stormy ocean. The breath is the anchor keeping you tethered to your physical body when the emotional storm is trying to pull you out of it.
That makes a lot of sense.
And to help with this, he offers very simple rhythmic mantras to sync with the physical act of breathing. You silently say, in, out, deep, slow, calm, ease, smile, release.
Okay, I have to admit, I tripped up on that last part.
The smiling part.
Yeah, the instruction to smile feels really jarring at first. If you are in the worst pain of your life, the last thing you want to do is smile. It almost feels, I don't know, dismissive of the pain.
That is a very common reaction, but there's a crucial distinction to make here. The teaching doesn't suggest you wait until you feel happy to smile.
Oh, okay.
It is referring to a gentle half smile, and the reason for it is rooted in deep physiology. When we are in deep grief, the muscles in our face contract. We furrow our brows, we clench our jaws.
We hold so much tension there.
Exactly. And that physical tension sends a continuous feedback loop to the brain, confirming that we are under threat.
Oh, wow. So by forcing a gentle half smile, you are physically interrupting that loop.
What's fascinating here is the underlying neurology. It's known as the facial feedback hypothesis. The physical act of releasing facial tension and engaging the muscles used for a subtle smile actually stimulates the vagus nerve.
The vagus nerve, right?
Right, which is the main component of the parasympathetic nervous system, overseeing crucial bodily functions like heart rate and digestion. By half smiling, you are sending a biological signal to your nervous system saying, "We are safe right now."
That is incredible.
It physically downregulates the fight or flight response.
So it's basically a biological hack to lower your heart rate. But it's also important to note for you listening that this isn't about forced positivity.
Not at all.
The teachings are very explicit about not suppressing the pain. There is a whole section dedicated to the act of crying. It emphasizes that it is human nature to cry, and that crying itself brings immense comfort and relief.
And that shifts the paradigm beautifully, don't you think?
Mm-hmm.
Grief in our society is often treated as a solitary burden. We lock ourselves in a room to cry because we don't want to burden others.
Yeah, we hide it. And there is this one quote from the material that completely stopped me in my tracks regarding this.
Which one?
It's written almost from the perspective of the loved one who has passed away, offering comfort to the survivor. It says, "If you want to cry, please cry, and know that I will cry with you. The tears you shed will heal us both. Your tears are mine."
Wow.
I know. That just completely takes the isolating, lonely act of crying and reframes it as a shared connection.
Creates a psychological bridge. Even in the depths of sorrow, you are not crying alone. You are crying with the love you shared with that person.
But let's look at a massive roadblock here. If you are listening to this and you are actively drowning in that level of acute grief, your adrenaline is probably spiking. Doesn't it feel physically agonizing to just sit completely still on a cushion and try to force yourself to breathe?
Oh, absolutely.
Most people in that state probably want to jump out of their skin.
The friction you are pointing out is a documented physiological reality. When a major loss occurs, the body's HPA axis, the hypothalamus, pituitary, and adrenal glands, floods the bloodstream with cortisol and adrenaline.
So you're basically in survival mode.
Your body is mobilizing for extreme danger. If you attempt forced stillness while your body is screaming at you to fight or flee, it can actually amplify the panic. The nervous system feels trapped.
So what do you do when the basement feels just as chaotic as the attic?
When that happens, the goal shifts. You stop trying to sit and you introduce motion. But it's highly intentional motion. This is where Thich Nhat Hanh introduces the practice of walking meditation.
Okay, walking meditation.
The objective is no longer about getting from point A to point B. The goal is to bring the mind and the body back into the same space. You do this by coordinating your steps with your breath.
How does that work in practice?
As you breathe in, you might take 2 or 3 steps. As you breathe out, you take 3 or 4 steps, since the out-breath is naturally longer.
So it's essentially acting like a pressure valve for the nervous system. You are burning off that adrenaline, but in a very controlled way. And there are mantras for this too, right?
Yes. As you step on the in-breath, you might silently say, "I have arrived."
Yeah.
And on the out-breath, "I am home." Or simpler still, arrived, home, home.
I have arrived in the present moment. Because logically, the present moment is the only place where we are actually safe.
Exactly.
The past is full of intense regret or longing. The future is terrifying because the person isn't in it. But right here, just taking this single step, we are breathing, we are okay.
And the imagery used for this is stunning. The suggestion is to walk as if you are kissing the earth with your feet.
Kissing the earth.
You are actively taking refuge in Mother Earth, relying on the fact that the ground is solid and capable of absorbing your frantic energy.
The mechanism there is incredibly effective for trauma regulation, isn't it?
Highly effective. By consciously slowing down the gait and focusing on the tactile physical sensation of the foot kissing the ground, you are engaging in a form of bilateral stimulation.
Like an EMDR therapy.
Very similar to certain modern trauma therapies, yes. This rhythmic left-right movement combined with deep breathing helps the brain process overwhelming emotional data. You are taking all that frantic energy and literally grounding it into the earth.
There is an added visualization within this walking meditation that is deeply moving, but also quite challenging.
The part about holding their hand.
Yes. The suggestion is that as you walk, you can imagine taking the hand of the loved one who has passed and walking with them. You let them see the blue sky, the majestic trees, the sunset through your eyes. You are enjoying the beauty not just for yourself, but for them.
It is a beautiful method of integration.
But I have to push back here. What does this mean for someone who is feeling totally empty inside? Let's be real. It sounds beautiful to imagine taking their hand and showing them the sky, but doesn't that feel like a cruel joke to someone who is actively grieving the physical absence of that exact hand?
That's a really fair point.
Isn't that just pretending?
That is a very valid hurdle, and it touches on how we traditionally view mourning. In older psychological models, the goal of grief was to sever ties with the deceased so you can move on.
Right, cut the cord.
It feels like pretending if we are still trapped in the belief that our loved one only existed in their physical body. But modern psychology has shifted toward a model called continuing bonds. The idea isn't to hallucinate their physical presence. It's about shifting your attention to a shared living legacy.
How does that actually work in practice, though?
Think about it this way. The way you appreciate a sunset or a beautiful tree is heavily influenced by the people who shaped you. If you allow yourself to truly take in that blue sky, you are acknowledging that your capacity to appreciate that beauty was partly nurtured and shared by your loved one.
Oh, I see.
By actively engaging with life, you are keeping their influence alive within your own neural pathways. It's not an illusion. It is recognizing the biological and psychological reality of their ongoing impact on how you see the world.
Okay, so the body is calm. We've dropped into the trunk of the tree, we've walked off the adrenaline, and we've grounded our nervous system. But that doesn't erase the grief.
No, it doesn't.
It's still sitting right there waiting for us. How do we actually process the emotion without letting it take over again?
This is where Thich Nhat Hanh brings up a concept that encapsulates his entire philosophy. No mud, no lotus.
The lotus flower, it's
Yeah.
beautiful, it's pristine,
Yeah.
but it cannot grow on marble or in thin air. It absolutely requires dark, dense, messy mud to grow.
Exactly. The mud represents our suffering, our grief, and our despair. And the core teaching here is that we should not run away from the mud. Understanding and compassion, the lotus, are only possible when we have actually touched our suffering.
If we try to pave over the mud with distractions, we get no flowers, we get no growth.
Precisely.
But touching that suffering is terrifying. How are we supposed to interact with the mud without getting sucked under?
Well, the imagery the teachings provide is surprisingly tender. When a painful feeling arises, we are told to recognize and hold it exactly as a mother would embrace a crying baby.
That is so disarming. If a baby is screaming, a mother doesn't scream back at it. She doesn't lock it in a closet.
Right, she picks it up and holds it with her own calm energy until the baby's nervous system regulates. We have to be that mother to our own internal despair.
And the specific tool for doing this is the practice of naming. You are instructed to literally call the emotion by its true name. You say, "Hello, my sadness. Hello, my despair. I know you were there." That seems almost too simple. Does just saying hello to it actually do anything?
It does, and the neuroscience behind it is incredibly robust. It is known as affect labeling.
Affect labeling.
Yes, researchers at UCLA have done extensive fMRI studies on this exact process. When you experience intense grief, the amygdala, which is the brain's fear and emotion center, lights up like a Christmas tree.
Totally on fire.
But the moment you assign a word to that feeling, by saying, "Hello, my despair," the brain's activity immediately shifts. The amygdala deactivates, and the prefrontal cortex, which handles logic, language, and emotional regulation, engages.
Wait, instantly?
Instantly. By simply greeting the emotion, you are fundamentally rewiring how your brain processes it in real time.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. It's not just about sitting in the mud and labeling it forever. There is this broader metaphor of the mind as a garden of seeds.
Yes, the garden.
In the depths of our consciousness, we have every kind of seed imaginable. We have seeds of despair, anger, and loneliness, but we also have seeds of joy, hope, and compassion.
And the fundamental rule of this garden is that whatever seeds we choose to water are the ones that will sprout and manifest in our daily awareness.
So if we only focus on the negative, we are constantly watering the seeds of sorrow, making them massive. But if a negative seed like despair comes up, we are instructed to invite a seed of the opposite nature to come up and embrace it.
Right. If you feel lonely, you invite the seed of mindfulness to recognize the loneliness.
However, to have the strength to do that, you have to cultivate those positive seeds first. Thich Nhat Hanh uses a very practical analogy here regarding a surgeon.
Oh, this is a great analogy.
Imagine a surgeon who has a patient needing a life-saving operation, but the patient is currently too weak, too malnourished to survive the trauma of the surgery itself. The surgeon doesn't just cut them open immediately.
That would be fatal.
Exactly. They prescribe rest, good food, and nourishment to build up the patient's baseline strength.
That makes perfect sense. We have to nourish ourselves with positive things first. We have to actively notice the blue sky, the fresh air, a good cup of tea. We are building up our internal emotional bandwidth so that when the grief hits hard, we actually have the strength to hold it like that crying baby.
We aren't desperately trying to weed the garden and destroy the grief, are we? We are just consciously choosing to water the flowers of our positive memories so they can grow strong alongside the weeds.
The weeds are still there, but they aren't the only thing in the garden anymore.
This ongoing practice of calming the body, embracing the emotion, and watering the positive seeds eventually leads to a state of profound clarity.
And to illustrate how this clarity arrives, consider the analogy of a glass of freshly pressed apple juice.
I don't think I know this one. How does apple juice relate to mental clarity?
Well, if you pour a glass of freshly pressed, unfiltered apple juice, it is entirely cloudy. You cannot see through it because the pulp is swirling all around in the liquid.
Okay, I can picture that.
This perfectly represents our mind in the throes of fresh grief swirling with confusion, panic, and overwhelming thoughts. But consider what happens when you simply set that glass down on a table and leave it to sit for a while.
Oh, wow. The pulp just naturally settles to the bottom on its own?
Exactly that. The pulp settles and the juice becomes completely clear. It becomes almost transparent. The practice of sitting meditation, of stopping and returning to your breath, is simply the act of putting the glass down on the table.
You aren't forcing your hands into the glass to push the pulp down.
No, you are just being still enough to let it settle on its own.
Wait, so the sitting meditation isn't about actively suppressing the thoughts. It's literally just leaving the glass alone. That is an incredibly visual way to think about it.
It changes the whole approach.
And so, once that pulp settles, once that mental clarity is finally achieved, where does this actually leave us regarding the finality of the loss? Because, clarity doesn't bring the person back.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this is where the teachings move from psychological coping strategies to a profound existential reframing.
Okay.
Once the mind is clear, it is ready to receive the concept of interbeing. Interbeing is the realization that nothing exists entirely on its own. Everything is interconnected. And when it comes to a loved one who has passed, the realization is that they are literally, undeniably still inside you.
I hear that, but I have to be honest, this sounds incredibly poetic. It sounds like something you say to make someone feel better. How is it literally true? How is this not just a comforting lie we tell ourselves to avoid the permanence of death?
It is grounded in both biology and behavioral science. Genetically speaking, if you are mourning a parent or a grandparent, their actual DNA is replicating in every single cell of your body right now.
Literally inside you.
You are physically constructed from them. You couldn't extract them from yourself, even if you tried. But it extends far beyond biology into epigenetics and psychology.
Right, because what if you are mourning a spouse or a friend? You don't share their DNA.
Consider what happens when humans bond deeply. We possess mirror neurons in our brains that literally download the behaviors, emotional responses, and micro-expressions of the people we spend time with.
Wow, download them.
Yes. Their thoughts, their beliefs, their habits, the shared experiences you navigated together, those have forged actual physical neural pathways in your brain.
Like how you might laugh at a certain joke exactly the way they did.
Exactly. Your values and how you approach problems are fundamentally shaped by their actions. Thich Nhat Hanh boldly states, "You are your mother. You are your father. You are your beloved. Their neural imprint dictates your current reality."
So what does this all mean? It means the past is not truly gone. The boundary between you and them is an illusion. And because they are entirely alive within your cellular structure and your neural pathways, there is this incredible claim we can actually heal the past in the present moment.
This is a vital point for anyone carrying regrets. Almost everyone who is grieving agonizes over something. I wish I'd said I was sorry, or I wish I hadn't acted that way.
We feel totally trapped because we believe the person is gone and the door is locked forever.
But through the lens of interbeing, they are not gone.
There is a specific example given about this. It suggests you can sit in the present moment today and say, Mother, I am sorry I was unskillful and I know I hurt you. Please forgive me. You say it right now. And because your mother is alive within your consciousness, the mother within you hears those words. You can feel the mother within you smile, and the wound actually begins to heal.
You are reconciling with the living essence of that person that permanently resides in your own psyche. It bypasses the limitation of linear time and physical bodies.
This raises an important question. If we really buy into this idea of interbeing, does it mean that even though the person is physically gone, our relationship with them is actually still active? Is it still breathing and capable of evolving?
That is the ultimate conclusion. A relationship is an ongoing exchange of energy, understanding, and love. If their energy and influence are still shaping your thoughts and actions today, then the relationship hasn't ended. It is simply transformed.
That is so powerful.
When you encounter a new challenge and process it through a lens they helped create, they are participating in that moment. When you heal a wound within yourself, you are healing a dynamic between you and them. The dialogue continues, just in a different language.
That completely changes the landscape of grief. It's no longer about leaving them behind so you can move on. It's about carrying them forward consciously.
Absolutely. So let's recap the incredibly practical toolkit we've extracted for you to navigate this storm.
First, when the shock hits and the branches are thrashing, you drop down into the solid trunk. You use belly breathing, in, out, deep, slow as your life raft to anchor you in your body, utilizing that half smile to physically signal safety to your vagus nerve.
And if the adrenaline and cortisol are too high and sitting is agonizing, you introduce walking meditation. You coordinate your breath with your steps, kissing the earth, allowing bilateral stimulation to process the frantic energy and ground your nervous system.
Once you are grounded, you don't run from the pain. No mud, no lotus. You treat your grief like a crying baby, holding it tenderly and calling it by its true name to move the processing out of your amygdala and into your prefrontal cortex.
You practice selective watering in the garden of your mind. You deliberately nourish yourself with the beauty of the present moment so the flowers of joy and resilience can grow strong enough to balance the weeds of despair.
And finally, you step back and allow the cloudy apple juice of your mind to settle, because when it clears, you realize the profound truth of interbeing. The person you lost is not outside of you, lost to the past. They are in your cells, your habits, your very consciousness. You can talk to them, apologize to them, and heal with them right now.
And it is vital to recognize that while this framework is explored in the context of profound grief, these are fundamental tools for human resilience. This toolkit applies to any moment of intense anxiety, panic, or despair you might face.
It's a masterclass in emotional survival. And it leaves us with something incredibly powerful to consider as we step back out into the world. For you listening, if our loved ones truly live on in our cells, our actions, and our perceptions, how might the way you choose to experience the world today, the beauty you notice, the compassion you show, actually be writing the next chapter of their ongoing legacy?